All right, this is the first lesson in chapter 2 for geometry. It's on proportions and solving proportions. So first of all, you might want to know what a proportion is, and what it is two equal ratios. What is not a proportion is two unequal ratios. In case you forgot what a ratio is, it's a comparison of two things. For example, in a classroom there might be both boys and girls. So the ratio of boys to girls in a classroom might be 13 to 11. That would mean there's 13 boys and 11 girls. The ratio of girls to boys would be 11 to 13. So it's just comparing the two. Now you might also see it as fractions. So the proportions we're going to deal with are actually fractions. So you might see like 11 over 13, which means 11 girls to 13 boys. And that would be equal to, proportionally, it would be equal to having 22 girls and 26 boys, because basically it's just double. So that's an example of a proportion. A non-proportion would be 11 over 13 and let's say 20 over 26. So these two things are not equal. That means they are not a proportion, okay? Now the way you can check it is you could do 11 divided by 13. Just give me 1 second to boot up the calculator here. So in the first one, when we had a proportion, if you do 11 divided by 13, you get this weird decimal. But if you do 22 divided by 26, which is double, you get the same weird decimal. In the second example that I wrote, 11 over 13 is still that. But then if we did 20 over 26 instead, we would get a different decimal. So this is 0.84, that's equal to 0.84. This is 0.84, but that's not equal to 0.76, which is what we just found, okay? So there's a way to check if two numbers are proportional. First, you can, like we just did with numbers, is you can do 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and then 20 divided by 6 is 3.3 repeating. Those two are not equal, so this is not a proportion. There's another way you can check, and that's by taking these two things, 6 times 4, it's called cross multiplying. That's 24. And then if you do 20 times 2, that's 40. 24 and 40 are not equal, so we know it's not a proportion. So over here, if we do this one, 4 divided by 3, that's 1.3 repeating. You can check on your calculator if you want. 16 divided by 12 is 1.3 repeating. Those two things are equal, so yes, it's a proportion. The other way you can check is to do this. Multiply these two. 4 times 12 is 48. 3 times 16 is also 48. Since this equals this, we know it's, yes, a proportion. Again, 4 divided by 3 is 1.33, repeating. 8 divided by 6 is also 1.3 repeating. Those are equal, so yes, it's a proportion. Again, the other way to check it is to cross multiply. 6 times 4 is 24. 3 times 8 is 24. Since this equals this, yes, it's a proportion. And then last, 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. 18 divided by 8 is 2.25. Those two things are not equal, so no, not a proportion. Again, the other way to check it is 3 times 8 is 24. 2 times 18 is 36. This and this are not equal, so no, it's not a proportion. All right, so this seems simple enough, right? You can just type the numbers into your calculator, but sometimes there's a missing variable. So these 4, why don't you pause the video? You're gonna wanna write these on the back of your work, or on the back of this notes page, okay? So pause the video and write those down. All right, so what we know about proportions is when you cross multiply, they're equal. So 4 times x is 4x, and 9 times 2 is 18. Now to solve for x, which is what the reason proportions exist, is we need to divide by 4 on both sides. These chunga chunga, and we get x equals 18 divided by 4 is 4.5. Now what you can do if you want to check your answer is you can put this back in right there and check. If you do 4 divided by 9 and then 2.5 divided by 4.5, sorry, 2 divided by 4.5, you get the same decimal. And this makes sense because you took half of the numerator and half of the denominator. All right, the next one. So for this, cross multiply, 10 times 4 is 40. And that's equal to k times 8, or 8k. So to solve, we would need to divide by 8, divide by 8. Chunga chunga, k is 5. This makes sense too, you guys, because 8 divided by 4 is 2, correct? So 10 divided by what is 2? Well, 10 divided by 5. Next one, when you cross multiply, 6 times 8 is 48, and that's equal to a times 3, or 3a. Now check this out really quick. From 6 to 3, you notice we cut the number in half, or from 3 to 6, you double it. So this side is twice as big. 8 doubled would be 16, so I think that a will be 16. But just to check, divide by 3, divide by 3, a is in fact 16. The last one, v times 2 is 2v. 12 times 10 is 120. Now look at this. This one is 6 times as big. 2 times 6 is 12. So 10 times 6 should be 60. If we do that, divide by 2, divide by 2, v is 60. All right. The steps you're going to follow here are first, cross multiply. Second, divide. So we cross multiply, and then you divide. Cross multiply, then you divide. Cross multiply, then you divide. Cross multiply, and divide. Okay? That's how you solve a proportion. You can always check your answer by putting it in for the variable and seeing if you get 2 equal fractions. You guys have an assignment to work on now. Let me know if you guys have any questions.